is to support the Toastmasters of today by leading Toastmasters World Headquarters team in providing service, resources, and support to our members and Toastmasters clubs worldwide. He also works very closely with the international president and the board of directors to envision the Toastmasters of tomorrow. Together, they develop and plan the strategies that will enable us to fulfill our missions and to reach our envisioned future. Daniel knows Toastmasters better than most. He attended his first club in 1989, and he's been a leader in the World Headquarters team and has worked with our board of directors and district leaders since 1990, giving him a very unique perspective and an extensive depth of knowledge. Since 2008, when he took on his current responsibilities, he has provided a steady hand while the organization has gone through massive transformations, and it has emerged as a stronger, more cohesive global organization. Please help me welcome Chief Executive Officer Daniel Rex.
Alicia, thanks so much, and thanks to the district team and the organizers of the event for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be here with you. International President Morag Matheson sends her regrets. She was not able to join us today, and I will attempt to stand in for her. But for those of you who know her, she's an amazing person and a fabulous leader and fabulous speaker. And I hope you get another opportunity to spend some time with her and learn from her wisdom. Today, I've decided to talk about people. And as I looked at the event schedule today, wow, what an amazing thing. The opportunity to learn so much in so many different educational areas from so many experienced individuals is fantastic. So thank you to all who are part of this and to everyone who's attending. I remember one of the first times that I really thought about how people are different. I was in my late 20s, and a group of colleagues and we'd been doing some studying on leadership principles, and our boss had required us to take the Strengths Finder assessment. And those of you who were around in those days, you remember Strengths Finder, right? Strengths Finder identifies through a series of questions an individual's strengths and then gives you some ways to build upon them. So we're all anticipating when we'd get our reports back to figure out what our strengths were. And I got my list and I looked at it and I was shocked by the first one on the list. I had no awareness, solid connection to it. And I'll tell you what it was: competition. And I remember thinking, what is competition even doing on the list? I don't understand this. So I walked over to one of my colleagues, and she was looking at hers, and I said, hey, this competition thing, I don't quite get it. Why is this here? And she started to laugh. And she said, Dan, you're the most competitive person I know. And I thought, okay, I've done sports a lot. And at that point, my knees still held out and I was able to do sports. And so I understood from that perspective, but I didn't understand that I had carried that into who I was at work. And then we looked at hers and we talked about each of these, and we started to understand each other better and understand ourselves better. I think that was really the first time that I thought about this, and it began a journey for me that will never end. And that's the continuous quest to understand who I am, who others are, and how we can interact together in positive and successful ways. And if you're on a leadership journey, and I think all of us are, that's amazingly important to how we lead. Understanding of self and understanding of others is the foundation of being able to lead and manage effectively. As we work through the next few minutes, I'll focus on 4 different areas that can help us survive and even thrive as leaders. But before that, learning about leadership. StrengthsFinder, Myers-Briggs, DISC, many help us understand ourselves and understand others. Why we are where we are is important to understanding where we want to go. A fabulous book that I highly recommend, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, Marshall Goldsmith. If you haven't yet read that, highly recommend it. This journey must be continuous. One of the most dangerous things in my observation in leadership is a leader who thinks they're there, that they have achieved the pinnacle. They don't need to learn anymore. And part of it is that puts them in a place where they don't, well, where they're typically not willing to acknowledge when they're wrong and when they fail as leaders, because we all do. At some point, we're going to be wrong and we're not going to succeed in what we're doing. All right, here's number one. Sounds like an easy one, but it's not. Be authentic. Be authentic to who you are. Well, what does that really mean? I was talking with someone about it once, and they said, well, that's great. I'll be authentic. I'm just going to be myself, whatever the situation. That doesn't work. That's not what authenticity in this context means to me. We've all known leaders who are consistently either too critical or even too nice, and neither of those works. And that's not authenticity to me, that's mismanagement. We cannot just be ourselves, whatever ourselves is, in any situation. Different situations, and especially difficult ones, require different leadership and management actions. So here's how I identify authenticity. We demonstrate consistent alignment with our core values, our vision, and our strategy. And then after that, we develop and execute significant tactical flexibility. But what that means is that we aren't going to deviate from our core values. We're not going to be dishonest in order to succeed. We have to first align and understand what are my personal core values and what are my organization's core values. And do they align or do they conflict? And how do I reconcile that? Once we have all that in place, then we can work. Is it important today to be strong and to be motivational, or is it important today to be empathetic? That's the kind of tactical flexibility as a leader and manager that I think we need to put in place. The second is to listen. This one sounds really easy, but it's not. Leaders are often selected because they're really good at getting things done by themselves. And they've created a successful path in their life by accomplishing a lot alone. Doesn't mean that we know how to lead. And it certainly doesn't mean that we listen to others. But we have to. We have to listen also to ourselves. Now, listening doesn't mean that we immediately do or say what the other people want. Listening means that we're gathering information, we're gathering context, we're observing patterns and trends. And then from that, we make decisions and we take action. A big part of listening is seeking advice. That can be tough. Our egos often get in the way. Mentors, counselors, those within the situation and those that are outside of the situation can provide us with context and insight that will help us along our leadership path and help us through situations, easy situations and tough ones. We have to listen to ourselves, and that's mentally and physically. Physical and mental strength, health, and stability are very, very strong leadership enablers. If we neglect a lot of areas in our life in order to solely focus on the tasks and the responsibilities at hand, we're likely not going to succeed as well as if we create strength in all areas of our life and then use that strength to support the accomplishment of what we're working on. And I'll wrap up this listening part. Focus on values and not popularity. Some decisions, the most difficult and important decisions, are the ones that will not be popular. Don't violate your values. Don't violate organizational rules and norms in order to be liked or appreciated. It's just simply not worth it in our leadership context. The third is communicate. Here we are at Toastmasters. We would think that it's normal and obvious to communicate. Communication is the leader's primary tool. But so often we're deep in the swamp of leadership that we forget to talk to others about what's going on, but we must do it. And we've got to open our audience to a group that is larger than we're probably accustomed to or even comfortable with. Communication needs to be timely. That doesn't mean immediate. It means at the right time and with the right audience. We need to communicate empathetically, acknowledge, express hope when there is hope. This was a tough one during the pandemic when we really didn't know where we were going. And try and put yourself in the shoes of the audience and imagine what they're going through and speak to that. Communicate honestly. Don't create false expectations. That just sets you up for disappointment from your audience in the future. There are some things that you simply can't talk about as a leader, human resources related things, confidential financial things. So honesty doesn't mean everything, but it means sharing what you can, when you can, in an open way. And the final one in communication, communicate openly, share what you can, and be sure to acknowledge if there's information or decisions that are still being reviewed. I'm a huge believer in process transparency. That's the opportunity to describe, for example, how decisions are made. That doesn't include a discussion about all of the viewpoints that were discussed, perhaps during a confidential conversation, but we talk about the processes that we went through to get to where we're going. Fourth and final key is to learn. As leaders, we must always be learning. Every day we must learn. This journey never ends. I always think it's important to seek crucible experiences. What are crucible experiences? These are the tough times that create and mold our leadership muscles. We need to learn to recognize them and even seek them out. I was in a class once with John Stokes, who's a leadership professor, has a bunch of books and sells these books. His area of specialty is the psychology of leadership. At one point, he says, throw out all your leadership books, including the ones you bought from him. Maybe that'd be so you buy more later. I'm not quite sure. He says, but throw them out and cast yourself into difficult leadership situations, because that's when you learn how you're going to react, what you're able to do now, what maybe you're not up to now, but you'll be able to do in the future. Through these difficulties, we become leaders because we're tested. And usually, almost always, we survive through them, in spite of the fact that sometimes we think that we won't. An important part of this learning is to reflect on our actions. And again, none of our actions and decisions are always going to be correct. We will make mistakes. Dave Logan from the University of Southern California, in a conversation with him one day, expressed it to me this way: manic depressive extroverts might just be the ideal leaders. When they're manic, they communicate, they rally the team, they fight the good fight. Then, when they're in a trough, they endlessly review what they've done and they determine how they could have done it better. Determine how we could have done it better. Such a critical piece. Don't endlessly beat ourselves up over something that we've done that's not quite right, or a decision that wasn't right. Figure out why we made the decision. What other information do we have now, or what other action has been taken that would cause us to do something differently today? An important axiom in my mind is, I reserve the right to get smarter later. We don't always know in the moment all of the factors that affect situations. And that needs to be okay. This is a journey that never ends. So these are the keys: be authentic, listen, communicate, and learn. And I'll wrap up with a proverb that I've grown to appreciate over time. Smooth seas do not make a great sailor. Smooth seas do not make a great sailor. When you're on the seas of leadership and see a storm on the horizon, there's an opportunity for learning, situations we haven't encountered, decisions to make, problems to solve. Thanks for being here today. Enjoy the rest of your sessions. Felicia, back to you.